Since the peak in March, NIO has fallen around about 35% into the recent low, following the earnings report and a significant sell-off. So if you're holding NIO stock now, you obviously are wondering, is it going to fall further? Or if you're thinking about buying into NIO, is the right time to buy in now, considering it's fallen so heavily? So in this video, I'll try and answer those few questions and offer my commentary on the price chart, covering daily, weekly, and the long-term trend. So we can see there was a big sell-off following the earnings report week, where NIO dropped round about 16%, and then last week it's fallen a bit further. So the total dropped around about 20% post earnings. So now could be a great time to pick up NIO stock, but it's not confirmed yet whether the price has stopped falling. And we know from recent price history, NIO is volatile and often is covered by short sellers. At the moment, it appears the price is falling into a significant support level of around about $3.50. So you can see the low here, which is $3.57, is just below the trough here back in August 24, which was $3.63, and also the trough here back in April 24, which was $3.61. So clearly there is some support around about this level here, $3.50. Now what we don't know is whether price is going to hold at this $3.57 level. If you look at the weekly chart and this green bar here, it does indicate that based on this being a reversal bar, that there is support here and buyers have come back in to take the price up. Now last week it peaked at $4 but actually closed back down at $3.80. So the bar is relatively strong, but buyers should be cautious. Since the price peak in September, around about $7.70, NIO has fallen. And as per my previous videos, you were able to draw a downtrend line across those three peaks. And we did have a price break back in February this year and also March. So price action did cross the trend line, suggesting that buyers were taking control. But since the earnings came out, there's been a significant sell-off. So there's just not any confidence with investors at the moment. And that's why the price has dropped down significantly back down to this $3.57 level. And if we zoom out on the weekly chart, we can once again apply this significant support level at around about $3.50. And also we can apply a longer term trend line with the weekly price data. So from around about the peak here in January 21, it's clear that NIO is in a steady decline. A price has attempted to cross the trend line on multiple occasions back in June 21, October 21, and so on. And most recently in July 23, around about $15. And then here again, we've got that 771 peak. So looking at this trend line, it's clear that NIO is trending downwards. However, more recently, the price and the trend has slowed down. And we've hit this support level of around $3.50 on multiple times. In April 24, August 24, and most recently last week in March 25. So it looks as if price is trying to find support at this level here and then make a move to the upside. I think long term, what we need to see is for price action to start to move up and break this long-term trend line. That would be the first indication that NIO is making a sustained move to the upside. And that could be a trigger for you to consider buying into NIO. Now, if we look at the monthly chart, we can look at the overall big picture. So let's mark up a few key price levels for reference. First of all, we've got the original listing price for NIO of around about $6. That was back in 2018. Then we've got the all-time low, which is down here at around about $1.20. Next is the all-time high, which is around about $67. And then the next one is going to be this peak here, which corresponds to around about $15.50. And then we got the most recent peak of $7.70. So these are some of the key price levels long term for NIO. And of course, one of the most important ones is the recent support level of 350. So let's mark that one there. So now looking at this monthly big picture chart, we can see NIO is currently trading inside this range between the 350 low and this price level here around about $6. It's tried to break out back in September, but hit resistance at 770, and the sellers came in and pushed it back down. So right now it's between these two levels here, and we can obviously draw a trend line on there to show the long-term trend. Let's mark that up in yellow. So now it's clearly obvious that NIO is in a downtrend, but it's looking to find support around about this 350 level. So if you're looking to buy into NIO, wait for price to cross this trend line to confirm it's moving to the upside. And if you were to buy into NIO, which price targets could you think about reaching? I think the first thing that needs to happen is price needs to cross the trend line. So it needs to come up from this support level, break the trend line, possibly come back to find support at $6 before pushing back up and taking off. And I think price taking out this peak here of 770 would be a strong indicator that NIO is finally moving up and has price momentum. So if you were to take a position with NIO, with price breaking 770, you may want to enter above here, 15% stop loss, and your first price target could be the $15 level. So this will give you a risk to reward ratio of 6.96, which is very, very healthy. So this could be a good short-term trade. Longer term, investors could expect price to creep back up and eventually reach this target level of $66, which corresponds to the peak back in January 21. Right now, the risk is towards the downside. NIO is still trending down. We cannot confirm yet if this 350 level is the low, is the turning point. So we have to wait for price to confirm that it is moving up. And the first thing that it needs to do is cross this trend line. That's your first indicator. So right now, be cautious. If you're still in NIO, maybe hold on to it. It's up to you. But if you're thinking about buying into NIO, probably wait for the next few weeks just to confirm where price is heading. Last week, NIO stock fell by around 7%, causing investors more hurt as this stock continues to underperform the broader market. So the question is, should you keep holding NIO stock if you're already invested? Or perhaps, should you buy more at this bargain price? In this video, I'm going to talk around the current price action of NIO stock and just offer a few insights of perhaps future price direction. So firstly, we can see that last week, NIO did fall around 7%. On Monday, it opened at 367 and closed at 381. Tuesday, the price pushed higher before Wednesday, Thursday and Friday were bearish days, with Friday having a large sell-off in tune with the wider market downturn. And NIO did fall through this key 360 support level last week. And it looks as if now it's trying to find support around this $3.20 level. And looking at Monday's price action, it does appear that some buyers have come in at the 320 level to push price back up. And we do have a reversal bar suggesting there is some support here with some buying interest. So it'll be interesting to see what NIO does this week, whether it pushes up higher and tries to get back above this 360 level. And if we look at the bigger picture on the weekly chart, we can see NIO has been in a downtrend since the peak of around $66 back in January 21. So it is in a long-term downtrend. More recently, the price action has been sideways from this low in April 24. And for a short time, it did look as if it was trying to break out to the upside by breaking through this short-term trend line. But if you look closely, it found resistance at around $7.60, which is the bottom of the longer term trend line. So clearly there is resistance here at this 770 level, and price needs to get above here to really show that NIO has some momentum and buyers are coming back into this popular EV stock. So following the breakout of the trend line, it tried to push up, but the selling pressure was too strong, and price then fell away into the low in January 25 of around $4. And then of course, after a small pickup here up to 541, price fell away following the negative earnings report and the wider market downturn last week. So NIO has now fallen through this key support level of around $3.60, where it found support back in April 24 and also August 24. However, last week it did fall through this key level and is now looking to try and find support around the $3.20 level. So Monday yesterday showed some buying interest with price reversing, but of course it's just one day. We need to see what the entire week will do, whether the selling pressure will continue or if buyers are going to come back in and push the price back up. So right now the risk is towards the downside with NIO, and you may be wondering whether because price has dropped you should buy more stock, and that's up to you. At the moment it's high risk, and it does depend on your overall strategy. If you're looking to trade this stock short term, now's not the time to buy in. But of course, if you're accumulating this stock for the long term, maybe 3 to 5 years, then you could consider buying into NIO. But it is high risk. And based on the financial reports after the Q4 earnings report, it doesn't look good. So it may be best to wait until the financial health of the company improves. Now, if NIO fails to find support at this temporary level here of $3.20, where could it go to next? Well, based on the chart, it looks as if there is some support around this level here, around $2.30. And then if it falls through there, it might go down to the $2 mark. Beyond that would be the all-time low, which is around $1.20. And that was made back in September 19. So right now, the technicals indicate NIO is falling and is a high-risk investment. It's always tempting to buy more stock when the price appears more attractive, but how can you confirm the price has stopped falling? Right now, if you were to look at this chart, it's clear the price is going down and NIO is in a long-term trend. The long-term trend is down, the medium-term trend is down, and also the short-term trend is down. So any way you look at it, the price is falling. So buying in now is very, very high risk. So when would be the right time to buy into NIO? It all depends on your investment strategy, whether you're looking short, medium or long term. Based on the chart data, it does appear that price would need to break this longer term trend line here and get above $6 to really show that it's starting some upward trajectory. Moving above $6 would clear all this price action here and would indicate that NIO is starting to move up. And I think based on the previous price action, getting above this peak here of 770 and breaking the trend line would indicate that NIO is starting to make a move up. So if you were to enter above the $6 mark, there is an upside potential to the 770 peak of around 30%, which is great. And if you kept holding and NIO continued to trend upwards, there is an upside potential of 150% up to that peak of around $15.50. So there is lots of upside with NIO, but right now the price is falling, so you have to be cautious. Right now the NIO trend is down and investor sentiment is very negative, especially after the Q4 earnings report. NIO just didn't deliver the numbers that investors were expecting and posted heavy losses. Now, of course, we know they are investing heavily in infrastructure and launching multiple brands this year, including the ET9, NIO's Firefly, and also the Onvo L60. But the sales are improving, that's really positive, but they're not enough to drive the share price and convince investors to come back in. But that might change over 2025. I think this year is going to be a key year for NIO. If they can start to boost sales and start to reduce their losses, I think investor sentiment is going to shift and money will come pouring back in. So right now, if you're holding NIO, whether you keep holding it, that's up to you based on your strategy. But it is high risk to be buying in right now. I think it's probably best to wait a few months to see where price moves and if it can break that long-term trend line and get above $6. Since the $3 low a few weeks ago, NIO stock has rebounded around about 20%. Reaching a peak of around $3.70 2 weeks ago, NIO had a quiet week last week, forming an inside bar. So the question for investors is, has NIO found support short term at $3 and will it move up in the next few months? In this video, I want to go over a few scenarios of what might unfold for NIO stock in the next few months, whether it's going to rise and break the trend line or if it's going to fall further. And if it falls, where will it find support? So right now, the technicals are saying sell because the price is falling. However, the analyst overall rating is buy, suggesting there could be some value on offer. Let's check the chart. So on the weekly chart, we can see NIO has clearly been trending downwards since the all-time high back in around January 2021 of $66. And following the negative Q1 earnings report this year, investors got spooked, a lot of them selling out, resulting in the stock falling heavily into the recent low $3. So the question is, will it rebound from here or will it fall further? There was short-term temporary support around about this $4 level where NIO found support back in January this year, early January, and also during February. And after that initial price rise of the peak of 550, price then fell away, particularly after the earnings report came out with the poor financial performance. So it's dropped back to $3, but the last few weeks it's trying to recover and make a move back up. So we can see on the weekly chart that NIO is in a downtrend. And as the price has fallen, it has fallen quite uniformly, making consecutive lower highs and lower lows. So each time the price has fallen, it's had a mini rally and pushed back up towards the trend line, but it's never broken this long-term trend line. So in theory, over the next few months, if NIO finds support at this $3 level and investors come back in seeing value at this price, there's a chance the price might rise up to challenge this trend line once again. So if you take this example here, from this low in August 2024, it found support, buyers came back in seeing value at this level, and the price rose quite significantly up to this peak here of 771. So what we might see over the next few months is buyers come back in seeing value at $3 and push the price back up towards the underside of the long-term trend line. And this would mean price may rise up to around about $5.30 to maybe $6. So you've got this level here of around $6, but also this recent peak in March 2025 of around $5.40, $5.50. So what we might see over the next few months is the stock price move up perhaps to around that $4 level, just pull back slightly and then push up again to challenge that trend line around about possibly $5. So a short-term trade from the current price up towards the bottom of the trend line would give you around about a 40% return. And this might unfold over the next 3 months. But if NIO continues to trend downwards and respect this long-term trend, it's more than likely going to reverse at the $5 level and continue to push back down. Of course, if NIO reports favourably in Q1, then that might be the catalyst for this long-term trend to be broken and for NIO to start to move up, possibly above $6 first, and after this it would have to move up to challenge this peak here of the 770. So if NIO's Q1 report is favourable
and perhaps they show increased sales with reduced losses, I think investors are going to like that and they might come back in seeing NIO as a great opportunity. And therefore, price may break above the trend line, confirming buyer support. However, on the flip side, if the Q1 earnings report is negative and NIO posts good sales, but perhaps the losses, they just aren't significant enough, the reduction of losses aren't good enough to please investors, we might see more selling and the price falling further. So where could it fall to? So we might see something like this unfold if the Q1 report is negative. So after this short-term price rise up towards $5, challenging the bottom of the trend line, post Q1 earnings, if it's negative, we might then see a rapid sell-off similar to the Q4 scenario, and price might fall down towards that 360 level first, rebound back up to the bottom of the trend line, and then fall away once again down to the support level of $3. And worst case scenario, if there is a big sell-off because of the Q1 report, the price might fall through the $3 support level and head down to the $2 level, corresponding to the low back in April 2020. So that's a real possibility. If the earnings report is negative, losses are significant, even with increased sales, investors might just give up. They might just sell out based on the fact they've been holding on so long for NIO to make a profit, and perhaps for some of them that'll be the final straw. So if you're holding NIO now, what should you do? That really is up to you. Looking at the price chart right now, NIO is falling. It's falling because fundamentally the company is struggling financially, and there's just not much confidence with investors to buy into NIO. Most are selling, therefore the price is falling. However, if NIO posts a positive Q1 report where they show increased sales and with the losses significantly reducing, that might invite investors back in to buy more stock. It might even encourage existing investors to buy more stock as they start to build confidence that NIO is starting to turn a corner and starting to pave that path towards profitability, which is planned for Q4 this year. I think that's a stretch, but there's a much higher chance that NIO will turn a profit in the next few years as its capital spending starts to reduce, especially on the swap stations, and the sales increase. Of course, they've recently launched the Envoy L60 and this month the Firefly. So if those two sell well in the first 2 quarters this year, that might be the catalyst just to start to change the overall feeling for investors and bring them back in. However, overall right now, based on the technicals, the risk is towards the downside, so be cautious. As I mentioned, there is a short-term trading opportunity from the current level up towards the bottom of the trend line around about $5, but you should expect price to reverse at $5 based on the previous price action and this resistance level through here, and also the fact that every time it's tried to push up, it has hit that trend line and reversed. But nevertheless, there is a good profit of 40% available for a short-term trade. And finally, just looking at the monthly charts, just to get the big picture of NIO, we can see this significant low here. This is the all-time low of $1.22. And you can see clearly that it has been in a downtrend for many months, respecting the long-term downtrend. Recently, finding support at the $3 level. So when you look at the chart from this perspective, it does look as if price is potentially going to rebound towards the trend line, come back and challenge $3 again, and potentially move down into this sort of $2.50 zone before having a rally back up and then falling once again. So based on the long-term price action, we must expect price to keep doing what it's doing unless something changes in the market. Looking purely at the chart, it does suggest that the price for NIO is going to keep falling, but things can change quickly. If NIO posts a reduction in losses in the Q1 report with increased sales, that might just be the catalyst for things to turn around. And things can turn around very quickly. For example, if you look back at the price action, a year after launch in October 2019, once price found support at this all-time low of $1.22, it absolutely took off. It absolutely took off and surged up to $66. So it's quite possible that NIO could do this again, and especially if it starts to post profits in the next few years. Will it reach profits in Q4? I don't know. It looks difficult right now, but not impossible. Last week, NIO had a great week, up over 15%. Since the $3 low, it's clear buyers have come back in and are pushing the price back up. Since the reversal bar during the Monday 7th of April week, last week, price did fall ever so slightly, but not much. Buyers stayed fully in control, with sellers only able to push the price down a slight amount before last week buyers came back in very aggressively and pushed the price up significantly, about 15%. At one point, it reached a peak of around $4.24, and then for the week, price closed above the key level of $4. So this is really positive for NIO, and it shows buyers are coming back in and seeing great value for this stock from the $3 level. So in this video, I want to talk about where NIO could go next. And specifically, I want to talk about two specific scenarios for NIO as we wait for the Q1 earnings, which is around 6 weeks away. I think this earnings report will be pivotal for NIO, either pushing the stock up or potentially scaring investors away and price will fall further. So let's have a look at the chart. Looking at the weekly chart, we can see since this peak of 550 back in March, price, as we know, has fallen away significantly into the recent low of $3. But in my last video, I talked about two possible scenarios where the price could fall further. If I zoom out, we can see that right now the price is looking like it's going to hold above $3, and the risk towards the downside has dropped significantly, with buyers coming back in this week and pushing the price above $4, which is great. So it looks as if now what NIO is looking to do is push up towards the underside of the trend line, and that is going to be around about the $5 mark. So over the next 6 weeks, as we come into the Q1 earnings key date, the price may do something like this. It may increase further for the next couple of weeks, pull back to test this level of $4 once again, before buyers hopefully will come back in and push the price up to that $5 level. This would be in keeping with the short-term trend and still respecting the medium-term downtrend. So price is going to go up, but obviously not break the trend line in the next 6 weeks, unless there's a key catalyst that happens for NIO. And that key catalyst could be the Q1 earnings report. If NIO reports positively on June the 5th, which is a Thursday, I think, for their Q1 earnings report, if they report increased sales, if they report a significant reduction in losses, this is going to pull investors back in, and this might cause the price to break out above this trend line on screen. So based on previous price action, there's high probability that over the next 6 weeks, NIO is going to trade up towards that $5 level, reaching the underside of the trend line. Of course, it might fall short a bit, but I think it's going to get close. So if the Q1 earnings report is positive, we might get a breakout of the trend line, and price is going to increase into this green zone here, possibly pushing up after the report towards the 771 resistance. Now, looking at the previous price bars for NIO, we can see that there are certain weeks where price has risen significantly. Going from the $5 level up to $7.71 might take 2 or 3 weeks with a pullback in between. So post earnings, if they're positive, we could see a rise towards $70.71 during July. However, on the flip side, if the Q1 report comes out as negative, perhaps if sales aren't increasing fast enough, and more importantly, the losses are still significant. So even if the losses have reduced slightly, but they haven't reduced significantly to attract investors, we might see more investors currently holding NIO selling their stock, and this will obviously drive the price down. So following the Q1 report, if it's negative, we might see price fall down and then come back to test, first of all, the $4 level. And if they're particularly negative, we might see price fall immediately towards maybe $3.50. And then maybe 4 weeks after the Q1 report, if it's negative, price may fall all the way back down to the $3 support level. So those are two likely scenarios after the Q1 earnings report. Obviously, if they're positive, high chance price will rise. If they're negative, there's a high chance price will fall. So just to confirm on the monthly chart, we know NIO is in a long-term downtrend. It has hit a support level of $3 in the last 3 weeks, and now it's looking to form a short-term uptrend, which should meet resistance at the $5 level at the bottom of the trend line. So overall, the next 6 weeks for NIO should be positive in theory. We should see the price rise towards that $5 level. Then, of course, it's going to be a pivotal moment when the Q1 report comes out. If they're positive, price should rise, and if they're negative, investors might sell out and price will fall. Thanks for watching.